Hi there everyone, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this new album from the Columbus, Ohio-based death metal outfit Sanguisugabogg with their brand new record Homicidal Ecstasy. Over the past decade, there's been a really solid revival of underground death metal bands that have taken the genre's already extreme roots and pushed them into new levels of violence by incorporating elements of gore grind and slam on top of already generally abrasive sonic avenues of brutal death metal. And Sanguisugabogg is one of these modern death metal bands that I think are really great at reinventing and reinterpreting the definition of what makes this style of music really heavy. And there are a handful of these bands that I think you could draw direct comparisons to, like Fluids, Vomit Forth, Undeath, Gatecreeper, Pissgrave, Undergang. Pretty much any bands that use Inferno printing for their merch is a part of this wave of really fresh death metal that is pretty consistently either good or great. From the Pornographic Seizures EP to their first full-length Tortured Whole, Sanguisugabogg have been one of these bands that I have found myself coming back to and thinking, goddamn, they've really got a good sense for this style of music. And Homicidal Ecstasy is no different. It's just a further development on previous material with a keener edge. I do think that they have managed to one-up themselves with this album pretty much across the board. The riffs are as nasty as ever, the drum work on this record is absolutely violent, the writing in general is a lot more solid than their last album, which while I did like that project, you could very much tell it was a debut album from a band that had only just started to stretch its legs. So this new record really feels like the first release from a band at its most comfortable, and I think that there's a lot of really great material on this thing that is just very commendable. I am a particularly big fan of the guitar work on tracks like A Lesson in Savagery, which sounds like a more animalistic take on some of the earlier death material crossed with like some napalm death level grind. I have very similar feelings about the track Testicular Rot, which has some insanely sharp drum fills that are just fantastic. And I think at this point, a lot of these bands that are doing this shtick, and it is a shtick, are unintentionally starting to kind of overlap in sound, and personally, I feel that that is because these past few years, and probably these next couple of years, we will be seeing a creative peak for these more extreme subgenres. And that's not to discredit these guys. Like I said, this album is a much more focused and confident album than their past work, but with how quickly bands like this are putting out material that is then spread to all of these other bands who are then needing to up the ante, I think that there's some scales that are being tipped, and pretty soon we're going to start seeing some duds. And I think in some cases we've already seen some of those signs, like the last Gatecreeper EP, An Unexpected Reality, which is, in my opinion, one of the first of these modern death metal releases to really feel like it didn't know where to go with its sound. So I think that leaves Sanguisugabogg in an interesting spot because they are clearly proving themselves on this release, but it's going to be interesting going forward from this point, seeing if they're going to be bringing more to the table, and I'm fairly hopeful with it being the beginning of 2023. I think we're either going to start seeing some more interesting developments from these bands or some interesting failures. I mean, this time last year, Blood Incantation dropped Time Wave Zero, an ambient synth record, which in my opinion was excellent, so it remains to be seen who in these lineups of bands is going to sink or swim, and with this release, I think Sanguisugabogg are a pretty strong contender. Anyway, cover to cover, Homicidal Ecstasy is a strong release with a lot of that classic brutal death leading the charge in the writing, but with a lot of pulls from slam, especially in the drum production. There's also some light elements of black metal which are being brought to the table, especially so on the track Mortal Admonishment. Proclamation of the Frail is an especially slam-heavy track with a snare tone that sounds like it came right off of a Cerebral Incubation record. There's also some great pitch harmonic work on this track, which is, again, very slam. Reminds me a lot of the track Cold Flesh Citadel by Catalepsy. And if you've watched my reviews before, you've probably seen me make this point before, but as far as strong closing tracks go, this record pretty much pulls out all of the stops on the last song, Fiending for Bloodshed, which is easily one of the strongest songs in their catalog thus far. Intensely heavy drum work, some of the best vocal work on the record with a lot of great change-ups. As far as I'm concerned, Homicidal Ecstasy is easily the best effort from these guys thus far, and again, here's to hoping the momentum is maintained, because even the tracks which I haven't mentioned in this review at all have a pretty consistent level of quality across the board. There's not really any especially weak tracks here. It's all more or less worth the time. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how they follow this up. I doubt it will be as extreme of a departure as an ambient record, but if they can keep that wind at their backs, these guys are going to go pretty far. Anyway, Homicidal Ecstasy is a pretty firm 8. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this album in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to all of those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again for watching. We'll see you on the flip side.